But if you ask me where the heart of the value that Pecan provides lies, it lies within the qualitative transformative leap that we have organizations achieve. We would help them basically cross the chasm and move from a data-driven, quote-unquote, BI-oriented analytics organization into a data-driven, predictive AI organization. And the difference is huge, because the moment you start relying on processes that are not confined to the very limited human ability to make decisions, but as we mentioned earlier, to the machine's ability to crunch numbers and identify patterns that we as humans will never be able to identify in our naked eye, then you start gathering tremendous amount of value from the data and from the processes it supports. Traditionally, when you look outside and you ask data scientists how long it takes from the moment they start until they have a production-ready model, you're looking at a 6 to 12 months cycle time at least. For Pecan, it's 2 to 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
The whole cycle. But you'll see the initial model, the first model, after a day of work.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of 1983. Today, we're diving deep into the world of AI and machine learning with a true innovator, Zohar Bronfman, co-founder of Pecan. With PhDs in computational neuroscience, co-founders Zohar Bronfman and Noam Brezis have taken their deep expertise to the forefront of AI, transforming how businesses predict customer behavior and leverage data analytics. If you've ever wondered how AI can transform your business from predicting customer behavior to interpreting your data better, then you're in the right place. Let's jump right in.
Zohar, hi. Tell me what inspired you to enter the field of AI, ML, and ultimately co-found Pecan.
So we are two founders of Pecan, Noam Brezis, who was our CTO, and myself. And we actually met during our PhD studies. So we did a PhD in Tel Aviv University in a field called Computational Neuroscience. It's an exciting field where you basically build machine learning and AI models to emulate, explain, and predict mental processes and human behavior. And we got very intimately acquainted with machine learning, and we understood how powerful these algorithms and methods are. That was probably 10 years ago, or even more than that. And very naively, both of us kind of asked ourselves, how is it that such a transformative strategic tool isn't being used by almost every company on the face of the planet? So if you think about AI, if you think about machine learning, these algorithms, these capabilities have been around for decades. It's not new. And some companies that were able to, quote unquote, harness the power of machine learning and AI became tremendously successful. It's worth mentioning companies like, obviously, Amazon and Google, and Facebook. They all have in their core business processes great machine learning and AI models that make them who they are. And apparently, it's very difficult in the applicative business realm to build machine learning in a meaningful way. And this is what drew us so, call it passionately, to build a technology that makes adoption of those core ML and AI algorithms far more straightforward and simple to implement.
You know, when we've talked about this topic before, one of the points that I thought was really interesting that you made is, listen, ML is really great at finding patterns in numbers, right? Compared to other new technologies out there. Talk a little bit about that. Help us understand that.
It's a very interesting point that helps maybe learn a bit more about the different sub-elements of AI. AI is a very big word. Whenever a computer is able to do something based on learning, people will call it AI now. But in reality, these are different capabilities altogether. So let's start maybe with what's very hot and buzzy these days. I'm obviously referring to the world of generative AI, large language models, generative diffusion models, or others. Those models are based on a technology that is called neural networks, by the way, invented by computational neuroscientists, inspired by the structure of neural networks in the brain. Interestingly, those generative models are very good with dealing with the so-called unstructured data. So that would be text, audio, images. These are forms of data that our brain is also phenomenal at classifying. So if I show you a picture of a dog and a picture of a cat, your brain will instantaneously be able to separate between dogs and cats. You even won't shed one drop of sweat. However, there are also patterns that lie in numerical data. So if you think about just as a very simple example, if you think about prices of Bitcoin over the days, right, for a period of a couple of years, when you look at the prices of a Bitcoin, your mind sees almost nothing. Sometimes there are forms of technical analysis of that form or another that might make you see something, but in all reality and all research shows that it's very hard for a human being to be able to identify any patterns in a bunch of numerical values. That's our human mind limitation. Obviously, it has its evolutionary origins. But the machine doesn't have these limitations. The machine crunches numbers one way or another. And the subfield of AI that deals with numerical data, sometimes it's called structured data, which is the abundant data on the business realm, is called machine learning. It's called predictive machine learning. And it's the ability of those algorithms to take a ton of historical numerical data, recognize patterns that our brain is incapable of recognizing, and then assigning a certain likelihood score for a future event of those abstract numerical representations. So I'll give you a couple of examples for what machine learning is good at, but it's very interesting to note that while the generative buzz is happening around us and is amazing, obviously, the things that you can do today with these algorithms are just mind-blowing for sure. Those algorithms, the neural network algorithms, are working very well when it comes to unstructured data. When it comes to tabular structured numerical transactional data, they actually fall short. And it's very interesting to see how different types of algorithms within the realm of AI fit different types of tasks. And it also sheds light on the business implementations of these algorithms. There is a growing concern in the call it economics realm that the investment in generative AI is going to be very slow in producing ROI. Machine learning, on the other hand, again, very interestingly, has been a solid producer of ROI for decades, like I mentioned. And I'll give you just a couple of examples of how machine learning is being implemented. So think about basically almost every customer-facing company that has historical, behavioral, transactional, or event-based data, which is represented by numbers, dates, things like that. Machine learning will allow you to very specifically ask a question about the future tendency or the future propensity of each and every customer or an event that will take place in the future to adhere to a certain pattern. So you can ask whether a customer is going to, for example, subscribe to a certain subscription plan, or a customer is going to, on the other end, churn, what is the lifetime value of a customer, and so on and so forth. This is the bread and butter of which e-commerce and retail optimization is based on. And other examples, like I mentioned or alluded to earlier, include financial predictions. So think of maybe the most astonishing example of early use of machine learning and machine learning predictions in the financial realm. We are all aware of Renaissance, a company that makes those algo trading predictions quite frequently, sometimes within the day. And they have been making, obviously, tremendous profits. The algorithms and the technologies that they are using for making those predictions go back to the 50s, and some of them to 60s, some of them to 70s. But that's how long machine learning has been with us. So with all of that amazing legacy, and with all of that amazing potential that machine learning can drive to so many businesses around the world, it's astonishing. It's almost jaw-dropping how little real life live examples we have of successful ML implementation. And that's what drove us to go and provide a boost to that area.
I know I know you mentioned that ML has been around, ML technology and the study of ML has been around for a long time. I know when I was going through grad school, 2003, 2004, there were already textbooks that covered this topic and the use of this topic in financial data, right? Couple of questions. What has led to the explosion of this conversation around ML in the last 15, 20, 25 years, right? And where do you see, the best application of this technology?
So I think the explosion came from several, call it independent factors that combined created the so-called perfect storm. First and foremost, the revolution of cloud and access of computational resources really made building those models available. So back in the day, if we think about Renaissance, if we think about Facebook, if we think about Amazon, they needed computational power so much that either they had to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure, like in Renaissance case, or in Amazon's case, it was so successful, their internal investment, that it eventually became AWS. But that gives you a feeling of how much resources it used to require to build those models, because they are very data consuming and computation consuming. So that's one vector, obviously, that made it far more abundant. The other vector, which is related but happens on a separate thread, is the availability of data. Data has become far more available. We generate far more data. But, and this is also a very interesting point that is often being neglected, in the realm of unstructured data, images, texts, audio, the realm that is more generative AI prone, data is being generated syntactically very exponentially nowadays. And that actually creates a challenge, because it's almost impossible for generative models to learn from generated data, because it's a bit like, a circle that draws itself. However, in the realm of machine learning, the data that is being constantly accumulated is pure business proprietary data. It's far harder to synthesize, and it's also far less relevant for the machine learning algorithms to use a synthetic data. So accumulation of data drove that as well. And I think now what we are seeing as a third factor, which is somewhat positive, but also has a little bit of a negative side to it as well, is the awareness. So one of the things that happened roughly 2 years ago with the emergence of the large language models at scale and all of the hype around AI is that even non-professional practitioners, so data scientists, machine learning, AI practitioners, they were excited and psyched about AI before Gen AI and after AI, just the same.
Mm-hmm.
But if you think about how decisions are being made in the business realm,
Mm-hmm.
usually it's the business folks who are laymen who are setting priorities and deciding how to make bets.
Mhm.
And there was definitely a case where Gen AI increased dramatically the amount of monetary investment and appetite for bets around the realm of AI and ML, and we see it obviously in our efforts on a daily basis as well. It's a terrific, obviously, improvement in the awareness and the appetite that the market has. But like I mentioned, it also has a negative side to it. And I do want to stress the point that layman individuals, people that don't really understand what's happening under the hood when it comes to AI, sometimes fall into the pitfall of expecting too much.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very clear case where once you think AI is really an intelligent being, which it is not, then you expect it to provide you with insights or guidance that it simply cannot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to align expectations for the business stakeholders. It's very important to align expectations on what AI can and can't do, and how important it is to keep the human in the loop so that the algorithms are being used, but they don't lead. They are a means to an end.
Yeah.
So we now as a company, from our perspective, we have far more awareness and demand, but also we have an inflation of unrealistic expectations that we have to manage and explain. AI can do this, AI can't do that. And you as a business person who wants to make decisions, you have to know what you should expect and how implementation should actually look like.
Yeah, that's a great point. With AI, there's been this expectation that just magic is going to start happening. And the let's say the tricky part is that when you do ask a question, there's always some output that's created. So you feel like magic just happened, but then when you start digging under the data and digging under the results, you realize actually this is not right, it's inaccurate, et cetera, et cetera. So then you begin to have to scale back your expectations, which I think is along the lines of what you were saying. Let's talk a little bit about, how is Pecan, right, providing ML-based analytics to customers, and what kinds of customers are finding it most useful?
Absolutely. So the approach we've taken is to think first and foremost where the adoption of ML is going to be most impactful.
Mm-hmm.
And the analysis we've ran that was back in the day is that companies that are already doing it, the benefit of doing more of AI and ML is there. It's definitely there, but it wouldn't be a transformative value, right? So if you're already an AI-driven organization, and just as an example, you have 10 models running in your business and support different processes, and now Pecan will help you get to the next 20, that is awesome. But to me, it's a quantitative, incremental value. We are doing it. We're happy to do it. But if you ask me where the heart of the value that Pecan provides lies, it lies within the qualitative, transformative leap that we have organizations achieve. Mm-hmm. We would help them basically cross the chasm and move from a data-driven, quote-unquote, BI-oriented analytics organization into a data-driven, predictive AI organization. And the difference is huge, because the moment you start relying on processes that are not confined to the very limited human ability to make decisions, but as we mentioned earlier, to the machine's ability to crunch numbers and identify patterns that we as humans will never be able to identify in our naked eye, then you start gathering tremendous amount of value from the data and from the processes it supports. The method by which we are doing it is to rely on a very, very interesting and dear segment of individuals, which is very close to our heart at Pecan, the so-called BI or data analysts. And I know it sounds sometimes semantics or a very minor difference between data scientists and data analysts, but in reality, these are two different personas. Data scientists are people who have AI experience, who are machine learning professionals that can build models. They could use Pecan to accelerate some of their work, but in all reality, they already know how to do it. They are already producing those 10 models. We can help them get to 20. The data analysts have everything it takes. They have all the ingredients. They know the data very well. They understand the business landscape very well. They understand the business processes. They do the analytics on a daily basis. The one thing they are missing, and this is because of their career trajectory, is the actual ML practice experience, the knowledge of doing machine learning and statistical algorithms. And that's what the Pecan platform does. It allows those data analysts, BI analysts, who are savvy, who are smart, who are very intelligent and hungry to kind of level up and become predictive agents in the organization.
Do they need to know the technical aspects of your tool? In other words, if, let's say, I don't know whether this is true or not, but let's say you require someone to have some SQL background in order to be able to extract the data. Do they need to know SQL or not?
So that's a terrific prediction. The only thing they need to know is SQL, SQL. And in all fairness, data analysts and BI analysts are already doing their day job by writing queries to connect to the data, to analyze the data. So we're basically saying, keep on doing the things you know how to do, that you're savvy at, but do that to serve predictions and predictive modeling.
Okay. This is an area that is seeing a lot of attention from startup firms, trying to bring these techniques to look at the vast amounts of data that are being created in small, medium-sized businesses. How do you at Pecan differentiate yourself, from the competitive landscape in this space?
Yeah, there is so much noise out there when it comes to AI and machine learning. And now people tell this joke of, you do machine learning in Python, you do AI in PowerPoint. In our case, we've been around for 6 years now. We've been doing what we're doing for many years. We definitely consider ourselves market leaders, but we still have, obviously, competitors and noise that we have to deal with. And usually this is what we are trying to explain. When you think about AI and machine learning, okay, the bottleneck for building models is not building the models. And this is so such an important insight that requires education. It sounds counterintuitive, but the bottleneck for building models isn't building the models. Building AI models today is extremely easy and commoditized. You don't need to know data science. You don't need to know AI. You can build a model in a second. So what's the big deal, you're asking? So what's the thing about Pecan? Interestingly, it's about the data. The limitation that machine learning models have is being able to digest data in its, call it native form, as it resides in the business side. So businesses gather data. They gather, the transactions, the transaction amount, the transaction date, the customer ID, potential marketing data, They might have events happening on the website and events happening offline. All of that is being digitized and gathered. Companies are far more advanced from that perspective today. But you can't take a model or an algorithm and tell it, hey, here's the data, go build me a predictive model. It's just not an option. It doesn't work. If you analyze the work of a team of data scientists that are trying to build a model in a scenario like I just mentioned, without exaggerating, 90% of their time is going to be modeling the data, gathering the data, structuring it, building it in a way that would make sense for the machine learning algorithms. I won't go into all the technical details. Suffice to say, there's so much know-how and expertise that is being invested specifically in the data modeling and data structuring. And that is actually where Pecan shines. This is our patented technologies. We are harnessing both advanced AI algorithms, generative algorithms that are based on LLMs, obviously, and our data engineering protocols. All of our technology sits in the platform, will do all of the data work for you, our data analyst or BI analyst user. You just need to designate the data and the predictions you want to create, and it will happen automatically. And that's really the bottleneck for adopting predictions. And that is our strong differentiation and solution.
I completely agree with this as a person who's done a lot of data work myself, that having great data structured properly is easily the main challenge, to create any sort of analytics, be it reporting on existing analytics or predictive analytics. It's having, but the other piece of this that's also challenging is that every organization has its different repository or different structure around data, right? Everybody tracks different data, records it in different ways, right? So Pecan has to sort of figure out there, right? Look at the data and figure out, okay, how do I solve this situation for this company versus the other company could be completely different. You're saying you guys have figured out a way to do this.
100%. Your point is so spot on. Every organization has their own data schema, structure, pitfalls.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that the data analyst know their data, knows the business data far better than anyone else in the organization.
Yep.
And that puts them in such an ideal place to work with our platform in explaining, here is the table that has all the transactions. Here are the transaction dates, and here are the transaction amounts. And this is how we internally compute conversion. I'm just giving examples. This can be done very easily if you know your data. So it's impossible to expect something like Pecan or other AI algorithms to just go and figure out the data on its own. It's a very interesting philosophical thing. They don't have the ability to understand the meta data.
Yep.
But the data analysts, the BI analysts are working with the data all the time. So this is why for us that persona, that analyst persona, is such an important persona in our story.
Yeah. What are some of the key, actually, before I go there, how long does it typically take for this experience to start to bear fruit for a client who's onboarded you?
Yes, it's again, because of the data automation, because data automation or data engineering is the thing that takes the most time, it's very, very quick. So another thing that is under discussed in the market and people don't always understand is that building a predictive model is an iterative process. You don't just go fetch the data, structure it, build a model, and you're done with it. You start with call it a naive model. You see how well it's doing. You understand where you stand, and then you start adding layers of data and refinements until you reach a model that you feel comfortable using in production. That iterative process takes time. Traditionally, when you look outside and you ask data scientists how long it takes from the moment they start until they have a production ready model, you're looking at a 6 to 12 months cycle time at least. For Pecan, it's 2 to 6 weeks.
Wow. Okay.
The whole cycle. But you'll see the initial model, the first model, after a day of work.
Wow. That is mind blowing. That time difference is mind blowing. That really is. I don't know the extent to which you can discuss this on this podcast, but whatever you can, I'd appreciate. How much success have you had in terms of raising financing for Pecan, and how much success have you had in actually locking up clients and doing projects for them? Where are you from a revenue standpoint? Whatever you can share with us, I'd appreciate that.
Of course. So we've been extremely lucky. We were in the right place, in the right time, with the right technology. And indeed, I think, like every company, we've made a ton of mistakes throughout our journey, but we got a few core things right. The vast majority of companies out there that are not, the giants of the market or the most technological companies are dying to do proper AI and predictive modeling and don't really have means to do it. They can't hire an army of data scientists. It will just be an investment that is beyond their capability. They don't usually have the muscle of doing AI at scale. And luckily, with our technology, we've been able to differentiate ourselves from competitors. Call it combination of risky bets we've made, combined with what I would like to consider as groundbreaking technology, allowed us to achieve two things. First of all, very aggressive adoption in the market. I can't go into revenue being a private company and all of that, but I can say hundreds of customers of different sizes. We have customers who are very early in the revenue journey, and we have customers who are in Fortune 10 or Fortune 15. So we know how to support different needs when it comes to making predictions for the wide variety of revenue and company size. And also, and it goes, usually it's very correlated, it goes hand in hand. We were also very lucky when it came to fundraising. So we've been working with the best VCs that are out there, S Capital and Notable, and from Israel also Vintage, and from the US Dell Capital and Google Ventures and Insight Partners. So amazing board.
Yeah, these are the brand name labels, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, we have to put everything on the table here. Expectations are high. The mission is very complex because you are talking about taking one of the most complicated things organizations are doing and making it accessible to organizations who haven't developed the muscle quite yet. It poses significant go-to-market technological and product challenges, but these are exactly the challenges that Noam and I wanted to face from day one when we thought about democratizing predictive capabilities. And like I said, we've been very lucky in making educated bets and taking risks in places where eventually ended up justifying themselves.
Yeah, bearing fruit. Yeah. What are some of the key industries that you're targeting, Zohar, for expanding your revenue base?
Yeah. So because of the nature of predictive modeling, that it is almost like a universal solvent and it can eat up everything you give it, there is a little bit of a double-edged sword here. I can't even think of a company that can't use predictions.
Sure.
But like you mentioned, we have to be very smart strategically in focusing on the lowest hanging fruits. For us, where we've identified that there's a huge positive balance between amount of effort and available resources and opportunity for ROI from predictions are the classic consumer businesses. So I'm referring to e-commerce and direct to consumer and financial applications of any kind and financial services, wherever there is a high frequency transactional consumer behavior that you gather as an organization, and it becomes your proprietary strategic asset, and you want to take it to the next level and harness your analytics team to make predictions so that you can optimize your KPIs, like increase conversion rates, reduce acquisition costs, increase share of wallet, retain your customers, keep them more engaged. These types of companies have proven to be the most relevant for our growth at this stage.
Yeah, so companies that work in the e-commerce space have lots and lots of data that gets generated there, are like prime examples of this. In terms of the size of the organization, do you think that there is some size of organization that is going to be more receptive to your story than others?
Yes, so machine learning eventually requires rich data that it can analyze and extract the patterns so that it can make the prediction to the future. So if you're an e-commerce business but you only started and you have 10,000 customers, it's probably not enough. So as a rule of thumb, we usually ask or recommend that there are at least 100,000 customers. Usually it already translates to a few $1 million of revenue as a lower threshold, and that there is a data of a few months, at least historically, for those customers that the model can crunch. There's no upper limit. We work with companies that have, and I'm not exaggerating here, 14 trillion data points. The machine can deal with that. But on the lower end, it's usually around these areas.
That makes sense, yeah. So now let me play devil's advocate with you for a second. When it comes to having access to, extraordinary amounts of e-commerce data, I can think of no better platform than Amazon. I might be wrong about that, but they're definitely got to be up there. I'd be surprised if they're not working with some models on their side to kind of do exactly the kinds of things that you guys are doing. Should we worry? Do you worry that down the road, Amazon is just going to have the best kind of tool out there to provide this service to the same customers that you're trying to reach out to?
I'm not worried. I definitely agree that other companies, and Amazon is a great example. There are other examples like Google and Microsoft, Salesforce, and others. They all have interests from different angles to further democratize predictive capabilities. We are actually aware of many companies, I won't be specific here, but we know of many companies that invested far more than Pecan has raised to date, and Pecan has raised a nice chunk of money in trying to solve this problem that we have been able to solve, and ended up, unfortunately for them, probably fortunately for Pecan, to end up closing the project and deem it as a failure. There is a very challenging technological elements. There are very challenging technological elements that are figured out by us and that haven't been figured out yet by the others. So at the point of where we stand today, I can proudly claim that if you are a BI or a data analyst and you have never built a model in your life, and you don't have what we call an AI-ready data set, so you haven't gone through the preparation and through the structuring, and you are looking to make predictions based on your native data, Pecan is the only platform that has the technology to walk you through that process automatically and help you get those predictions. And others simply don't have that capability. They are serving well, Amazon and others, the data scientists, so people who are creating predictions, and a subcategory of data scientists that often is being termed as citizen data scientists. So people who are maybe not bona fide data scientists with 10 years of experience or with the proper statistical formal education, but that still have the experience and know-how in making that data preparation and modeling work viable. So at the moment, we lead from a technological perspective. Amazon has their own advantages, obviously, and that's why we are so focused on capturing as much market as we can, because there is definitely an interest for all of these companies to further democratize and popularize machine learning and predictive capabilities.
Can you share a success story where Pecan Solutions significantly impacted the client's business?
Absolutely. So thank God there are many of those. I'll pick just one. We said that one of our ideal customer profile examples would be an e-commerce company. So there is an accessories and jewelry e-com company that sells relatively low-cost accessories and merchandise around jewelry. It's an only e-com type of a business, and they have great BI practice, strong analytics, but they haven't went through the journey of making predictions quite yet. They started working with Pecan, and like I said, the data analyst, the BI and analytics team started working with Pecan. Within less than a week, they had their first churn model. So they have a subscription premium plan, and they wanted to know which of their subscribers is going to churn in the next week so that they can proactively make a promotion and retain those customers. Within a week, they had a model in place, which was already better than the human-based intelligence methods they had. It took them 4 more weeks to go through the iteration process I mentioned of adding more data, finding the model, making better definitions, and then they've reached a model that was 4 times better in detecting customers who are going to churn than what they had in place. Now they're using the model to inform their promotional decisions, and they already started working while they deployed their model into production. They already started working on another model, right? Because we are a platform, you can build as many models as you like. Which is also very interesting in the realm of e-commerce. They wanted to know which of their active customers who has made a purchase today is going to make another purchase. The rationale being that for those who are making another purchase, it makes sense for the company to wait until the end of the day and ship all of the goods in one shipment. That is a better customer experience, and also it's a far better operational process that saves a lot of shipment pain. Shipping is one of the biggest pains when it comes to e-commerce companies. So again, it took them almost no time building those models, getting them deployed. All of that took place automatically. No data science knowledge, no data engineering, no machine learning operations. All of that is being done through the platform. And within, like I said, a few weeks, they had two models that traditionally it would have taken a year to build end to end, already being ran in production, seeing very significant ROI.
Interesting. How do you see the role of ML and AI evolving in the analytics space over the next 5 to 10 years?
So, first of all, they always say that entrepreneurs are extremely optimistic. I'll have to admit that I consider myself an extreme optimistic as well. Having said that, I am very optimistic about the future of machine learning for two main reasons, but there are others as well. The two main reasons I think are as follows. One, the heat is on for organizations. I don't know if you know it, Madhu, but the shortest tenure for an executive in companies is the chief data officer.
The shortest what? I'm sorry? The shortest?
The shortest
oh,
tenure.
interesting. That's really interesting.
They last the least. It's a year and a bit. The reason is not because of the CDOs, for sure, and not because of the CEO and the executive leadership. It's because there is this huge gap I spoke about between expectations and realistic delivery.
Yeah, sure.
Like, data organizations are seen as cost centers.
Yeah.
It's very hard to speak about tangible ROI, cool projects, interesting initiatives, but where is the money? So the heat is on. And if you canvas the landscape of AI and you ask yourself, historically, what has been proven to really move the needle, to have really a measurable ROI that you can say, before that, I was in this situation. After that, I've gained so much value. It's by far machine learning and predictive capabilities. Nothing even comes close to how valuable machine learning and predictive capabilities are for organizations. So one of my personal predictions is that as investment in data and AI is increasing, and it increases every month, not even every year, every month, budgets are being added because of the Gen AI hype and buzz and promise. CDOs, analytics leaders, data leaders, CIOs, CTOs, they will all be hard pressed to show what's
the revenue generation capabilities of their.
They will have to defer to machine learning.
That's a great
if
point.
They want to justify AI. That's point number one. Point number two. What we are seeing today in the market is, again, Gen AI contributed dramatically in a very positive way. We are seeing a motion or a movement of upskilling and people just trying to do more with their existing tool set and set of capabilities. And it's heartwarming and it's amazing. And those who will embrace technology, those who will work a bit harder on using advanced technologies to drive value are going to be promoted, are going to be more successful. That's very clear. History tells it without even a question. And there is a lot of opportunity for data and business intelligence analysts to cross the chasm for the realm of AI. And again, we like to believe that we are the main vector for that. So the fact that people are now looking for ways to drive more value by adopting technologies, and the fact that this persona I spoke about, the analyst, is one of those individuals. From our experience, we love analysts. We think they are far under-evaluated in the market. The combination of the persona, their psyche, and their motivation internally is going to be just an amazing vehicle for adoption of machine learning.
You are co-founders, right? Both of you and Noam have PhDs in cognitive neuroscience. You go back a long way. You're probably really great friends, but you have a very similar background. How do you sort of figure out who does what or focus on what? How do you work together?
Yes, so indeed we go way back, before we were married, before we had children, before we had white hair.
That's awesome.
I always laugh at Noam that it was even before, back in the day, he had hair. So we do know each other for quite some time, and we are very close friends. The division of labor is quite straightforward. Noam is a technological prodigy. He is responsible for all of our technological innovation, groundbreaking work that has been continuously done in the last 6 years that we are up and running as a company. I took the more business-oriented side of things, identifying the market opportunities, the strategy, where we need to make our bets, how we can, take our technology and product and resources and just make the most impact and strongest adoption as fast as we can. So we supplement each other. We work very well together. We consult back and forth. Noam can definitely ask me about my technological intuition. I will definitely ask him about whether a specific assumption I'm making with the strategy makes sense from his experience. But eventually, there's a very nice division of labor that works very well for us.
I have, this has been a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking with you about this space, what its strengths are, how it differentiates itself, what you guys are doing. This is really what it comes down. This is the most important question. My son, you see, recently has started to beat me in tennis. He's 10 and a half years old. And I can see that this is going to go downhill very, very quickly. Is there any way I can use your technology to predict where his next shot is going to go?
It's a very, very interesting use case. And the short answer is yes, but I do not recommend investing your time and money in making these predictions. Just let nature take its course and let him win. He deserved it.
Zohar, thank you so much for this incredible conversation. I loved your answer at the end. You were like, let the guy go. Stop competing with your own kid. I appreciate that point very, very much. Thank you so much, Zohar.